I just learned that my dad child trapped my mom with me. As a child, I 18M thought my mother 40F had left us. That's what he always told me. He told me that my mom left us when I was 2 years old. My father 42M had to work really long hours to make things meet, which made me hate and dislike her as a child. I didn't like that when I asked my grandmother about my mother. She had to raise me. My grandmother made a picture of a woman who was mean, angry, spoiled, and cocky. I had a good reason to be mad at and hate her. That was what my family told me, and I had no reason to doubt them. I found her on social media while I was at my boyfriend's house a few weeks ago. I was mad that she was having a great time. She works as a chef in a restaurant with a Michelin star. She goes on trips, lives in a big apartment, and is married to a handsome man. In a rage, I sent her a direct message yelling at her for leaving me to live her silly life and telling her that she would get what she deserved. It's clear she saw it. But instead of getting mad at me, she just asked me to meet her. She said she thought I should be able to tell her how I felt in person because she felt she owed me that. I was amazed because my dad said she never took responsibility for the things she did without telling anyone. I concurred. She asked me to come to this great place. She even paid for my Uber. In the beginning, it was weird. I yelled at her over and over because I was mad. I almost cried. She did nothing but sit there and take it all in. Then I asked her why she had left me. Do you really want to know the whole story? She asked. This is not nice and you will not like it at all. I understand that I will always be seen as the bad person in your life, so I will stay away. I didn't give up until she told me her side of the story. As far as I can remember, this is a copy. She told me that she and Dad met right before they graduated from college. My mom had told me at that time that she didn't want to live in that town forever. After dating for a few months, my dad told her that his landlord was evicting him because the flat had to be used right away by the family. He said he could stay with her until he found something else. After months, he still hadn't done anything. That's when she got a job offer in a different country. She told my dad that he could move in with her or take over her apartment. During a big fight, my mom told him she wasn't ready for the kind of engagement he wanted. She didn't want the same things in life as he did. Even though she loved him, they weren't meant to be together. They stayed together and lived together. She found out she was pregnant one day. She told me straight out that she was thinking about not having me. At age 22, she didn't think she was ready to be a mom, and she didn't feel like a mom. She said she was already having a hard time with sadness. My dad talked her into having me. He said he could have me, so he did. He would go after her because the baby was his too. I was hers. She said it was really bad after giving birth. My dad was taking too long with the court process. He wouldn't leave the house. My mom told me that she loved me and that there were times when she was so happy. There were huge waves of dead ideas that hit it. She was afraid of making a mistake. At that time, she also showed me some court papers that supported what she said. She was so desperate by the end that she decided to stay with my dad if he would take care of her the most. It was kind of him, but he did it. Then my mom told me that things got so bad that she tried to delete herself around my second birthday after a very bad fight in which my dad admitted to messing with her birth control. She showed me the papers from the forced 72-hour commitment and the court case that said she wasn't fit to be a mom. After that, I felt sick. I still wouldn't have believed her if she hadn't brought so much proof with her. In my message, I said that we were having trouble. She then asked me what that meant. I told her that my family and I were not very wealthy and that it was hard for me to find the money to go to college in a different place. So she was confused and asked me what my dad had been doing with the payment she was making every month. I told her that money doesn't come to us. After that, she got out another stack of papers. You guys, she sends child support every month. It's almost $3,000 in total. She was ordered by the court to pay $1,500, but she chose to pay twice as much. She doesn't need to pay that much, but she does. She was really worried about this and told me she would get in touch with her lawyers right away to get the money sent straight to me. She finally told me she was sorry. She felt bad that she wasn't stronger and let me grow up the way I did. We both started to cry by the end. After that, she told me to wait. She would call me again about the payments, and I could tell her she wasn't the mother I wanted if I wanted to see her again. The very least she could do was help me with anything. She hugged me while I cried, and I did the same. She called another Uber to take me home while I packed up my food. I went right to bed because my dad wasn't at home. I left early the next morning to stay with my boyfriend. Everything about my life is a lie. Change one after reading yesterday's post. I went looking around because I no longer trust my father and found proof of the harm he did to my mother. The charges were brought against him, but he never went to jail or had his sentence greatly lowered. This would have been when I was 2 years old, after my mom was put in jail. I also found a court order that my mother had made against my father. It was a lot worse than she said. It makes me so sick that I want to scream. After that, I went back to my boyfriend. Since then, my dad has been calling me a lot to ask why I've been away from home so much. For now, I'm going to say that there's a problem with my boyfriend's family. I wanted to talk to him about what happened yesterday, but I don't feel safe right now. Update 2, I chose to spend some time at home because I needed to get my court papers and such. We talked for a while when my dad got home. By the way, I just asked him, did my mom never send you child support for me? My dad made a funny face and went on a rant about how the mother could always go to court and how they told him he couldn't expect anything from her, etc. He made up the whole story about how he begged her for money because he didn't have enough for school supplies, and she said, no, this is not true, I know it. It's been over 15 years since my mom last sent money to my dad. She kept detailed records of all the money she sent every month while she had a job. She sent him $400 at first, then $600, then $1,000, and finally $3,000. He then went on to talk about how hard it was, that he wished he had gone after her more, but that the courts were against him. His words made me think of how we were still barely making ends meet. His rage was crazy. I looked through his room after he left for who knows where and found a stack of cash in a sock box. Over $5,000 was squished into the back of his drawer. Things are getting worse, and I feel so strange I can't explain it. But everything I need is here, and I wrote to my mom so that maybe we can meet again. 3, I told my mom everything that I had learned about money. She told us that legally we couldn't do much, but she talked to her lawyer, and since I'm 18, I can. She started the process of sending me my child support money. She said that while she still had to pay my dad, she would give me $1,500 every month for now. I'll get it all as soon as the process is approved. She also agreed to pay my school fees and help me move into an apartment in the town where my university is located so that I could be as independent as possible. We decided that talking to my dad about it would not be a good idea, so we told him that my boyfriend's parents had invited me on a honeymoon. He doesn't know that he's my boyfriend, so we're going to tell him that they're moving and saying goodbye to my friend. Friends and family of my boyfriend and I have talked. They said yes right away without even thinking. They know everything now and fully back me up. For 2 weeks, my mom and dad are taking us to a nearby country where they have a summer house. Whenever I told my dad about the plans, he said it was fine as long as his parents paid. So I'm going for 2 weeks on Thursday, and I hope everything works out before then. I already have all the important things with me in case things go wrong. Fast Change 4 Wednesday night, things move so quickly. My dad and I got into a fight the night before I left because I didn't take his car to get the oil changed. He called me all kinds of names and said I was a selfish brat because he raised me. Then he had my grandmother come over and tell them how upset she was that I wasn't old enough to go on vacation, let alone college. They kept me up until 4 a.m. by saying they had a family meeting. It was mostly just a list of all the bad things I'd done in my life. To be honest, I was down on myself. I looked bad, cried, and felt terrible. Thank goodness my boyfriend called because I hadn't responded to any of his texts. While my dad was sleeping, he helped me move all my stuff. I left without saying goodbye. Around noon, he texted me and my dad was acting like nothing was wrong. 2 weeks went by really fast, and then I got an email telling me I got into a great political science school. Then things went off the rails. My mom stopped giving my dad half the money all of a sudden, so she was only paying what the law required her to. My dad lost it. I heard him yelling at me to come home right away. Later, he called me crying and said that my mom had come back and was suing him, and we didn't have enough money to pay the mortgage. I called my mom to find out if she was really suing him. I told her no, and she said she had just gone to court to start paying me directly instead of my dad, which they agreed to. Then my grandmother texted me to tell me I needed to get home right away because my dad had a heart attack. As you might expect, when I got home with my boyfriend, our house was a complete mess. There were cigarettes, beer cans, and string liquor all over the place. Everyone who bet that my dad was spending all the money on drugs and fancy things was wrong. That's great, you were right. So it seems that after I left, my dad threw a big party and invited all of his new friends from fancy bars. That's what I know because the woman in the hospital with my dad was his lover and didn't know I was there. She kept saying that our house would be a good place to spend the summer. It looks like my dad would take the child support money and spend it on making himself look better. It was in one of these fancy hotel sky bars that he met her. He had bought some nice clothes and liked to hang out there. After that, he would take her and her friends to fancy clubs and restaurants. She didn't say it outright, but she made it sound like they often used illegal drugs on those trips. Like the party that put my dad in the hospital, I thanked her and told her she was lied to about the money not being my dad's. That's when she left for good, just in time for my dad to wake up. I also told him the news. He got angry and hit me in the face. I felt scared. Even in the hospital, he wasn't fully better. The nurse told the cops about what happened after I told her. My mother took me in the next day while she helped me with all of my dad's court issues. Besides that, she helped me move out. For some reason, my boyfriend has been living with me. There are good and bad things about it. My dad was blocked, but I've been getting threatening texts. Change 5 while our case was going on. My dad passed away. After I got out of the hospital, my mom and I hired 2 great lawyers. One helped us with the attack case, and the other helped us with the money theft case. The child support case moved quickly through the system. I had to get him to pay back half of the money I had given him over the last 3 years. There were no more fees. But the attack case got worse. He was going to try to plead not guilty by reason of brief insanity, which was found out. He told his ex-girlfriend how he was going to get away with it. She is a good person and showed the cops what she did with his girlfriend. He deleted himself because he owed a lot of money, was going to prison for a long time, and had no more money to get out of jail. From Friday until today, I hadn't felt anything, but today it hit me. I'm finally free. I don't need to check behind me. I don't jump when I hear footsteps. And I don't feel nervous when I look at my phone. I'm free. I'm finally free.